Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming once again, visiting tjkshares. This is the channel where we promised you to bring you ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's a Friday, the sun is shining. We thank God for a beautiful day. I hope many of you are continuing to subscribe, to share, and get these messages across the world. Today we are privileged, and I am so happy to be hosting somebody from home. We've been to Brazil, we've been to Israel, we've been to Sweden, we've been to London, we've been to Asia. We come way back to the home where all this started, where I was born and raised. I am hosting a childhood friend, somebody I went to school with, somebody I worked with, somebody I call a friend and a brother, then and now. Godfrey Ngabirano, welcome to tjkshares. Please greet the people and we get into this conversation.
Good evening, good morning, everybody who is watching. Thank you, Jackson, for hosting me on this channel, tjkshares. As you have already introduced me, I'm Ngabirano Godfrey,
Yes.
born and raised in Kanungu, and still living in Kanungu up to now. I was born here in Kanungu. I'm a Mchiga. I was born 57 years back, and I have lived in Kanungu most of my time, and that's where I have been working as a community leader most of my time. I was born in a big family, a polygamous family of 3 wives and 22 children, and I am the second last born. But unfortunately, 12 of them have already passed away.
Oh.
So I am very glad to be here and share a few things on the tjkshares.
Wonderful. Ngabirano Godfrey. I always tell people in Uganda, there is no order of names. You can call you Ngabirano, we can call you Godfrey. In an American society, that is a strange thing. People have first name, second name, middle name, and last name, 3.
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you for coming. You've already started talking about your upbringing. I would like to ask you a little bit more about your upbringing and how your upbringing shaped the man you are today. You've already talked about your dad having many wives on a polygamous family. And I want to put a caution here for those of us listening to us that in our traditions, actually, to be able to marry more than one wife, that was something not everyone could do. People who were wealthy, had land, were the ones who were able to do that. And in a way, doing that also helped the family where the wives came from because they paid bride price, and that helped with that family. That tradition is long gone. Here we have Godfrey with 22 siblings. Talk about your upbringing, please.
In fact, as I said, I grew up in a polygamous family, and my father was a retired chief. So he had a lot of cows and goats, and a lot of land. That's why he was able to marry many wives. All my siblings went to school. In fact, my eldest brother was the most highly educated child in our family. He was, by the time I grew up, because he was 30 years older than me. By the time I grew up, he was working as a cooperative officer. So he was a highly respected man in the community. So by the time I grew up, I wanted to be like him, and also, if possible, get a chance and serve in the footsteps of my father, who was a chief. So by the time I grew up, I had 2 people, my own father and my eldest brother, who were successful in the community. So I always wanted to be like them.
So in a way, you already had mentors within the family in terms of
exactly, my elder brother and my father.
And your
I
father.
wanted to follow in their footsteps, because by the time I grew up as a child of a retired chief, my father was a highly respectable and respected man, and wherever I would go and introduce myself as the son of Ham, then people would compliment that he was a good man, he was not corrupt, he was straightforward. So I would feel very good. Then as I was growing up also,
Yes.
my elder brother being a cooperative officer, I was dealing in buying produce, more especially coffee. When the schools would open, I would see very many parents coming to him looking for soft loans to take back their children so that they can pay him later after selling their coffee. So he was always assisting them, and I would feel very happy seeing him helping people to go to school and then be paid back later. So I grew up knowing that these two people are very important in the community, and I should follow in their footsteps if possible. And by the way, I ended up following up in their footsteps, as I will tell you.
Wonderful. And now I see, you know, many times I get to interview people here and we hear things that nobody had ever heard before. When I hosted Sam Mogisha, he was talking about his growing up, and his brother wrote to me afterwards and said, I didn't know that. So even family members get to learn things from conversations we get here. Now this explains why when we finished school, you went back to the village and became a chief, following in the footsteps of your father. Public service, ladies and gentlemen, we can see here it is in the blood of the Hams, and you are absolutely right, because every time I'm traveling through your area where we have camp blessings and where we've taken our Nyaka students to go camp, everyone speaks about your father. Mzee Kashaku speaks about your father. Webale mnonga mzee, mwebale kukuza omushiija hatiya owaza kuha enjiri eyomunsi yona. So you had that influence growing up. How did you end up then?
Yes, immediately after college, I went back to the village because I wanted to serve my community. Then within 1 year, I had secured a job in public service in the Kanungu district local government. In fact, by then it was Rukunjiri district local government as a parish chief. My roles included collection, submission, and making accountabilities for the revenue collected. So I was a tax collector, but still I was involved in the socio-economic development of our communities, because I had to make sure that all school-going children go to school and remain in school. Whoever would not take the child to school, I would have to do a follow-up, and in fact, threaten him that if he doesn't take the child, he will face disciplinary action. Then I was also involved in a general administration of the parish. A parish is a big area with about 2,000 households. So it was my duty to make sure that there is law and order, to make sure that there is a health improvement, to make sure that all taxes are paid and accounted for. So it was a very challenging job because the parish is a bit big, but I made sure I followed in the footsteps of my father and did the needful. In fact, the first place where I was posted, I worked there for 6 years. Then another place where I was posted, I worked there for 10 years. Then later on, I joined Nyaka still as a community mobilizer, as a community social worker, where I was able to change a lot of things. Because as a parish chief, but wherever I would be posted, all my bosses would appreciate my services, because there would be a very big change. Then while I was serving as a parish chief, I encountered some challenges in my area of jurisdiction.
Yes,
Because
please tell us about the challenges of serving as a parish. And I'm so glad you highlighted that you were a parish chief within Kanungu district when it was Rukunjiri district. And
yes.
I think that's around the same time when Uganda Revenue Authority had just begun. So for
Yes.
you to have worked within that era, share with our listeners one success story that you remember from you serving as a parish chief, and one big challenge or obstacles you faced at the time you were serving.
Thank you so much. During the time I was serving as a parish chief, there is one success story I can share. I was in a parish in a sub-county called Rujeyo, where I was posted in 2001 after Kanungu district had been carved out of Rukungiri. So by the time I was posted that place, very many people had defaulted in paying taxes. Yeah. So there was less taxes being collected from that parish in the form of graduated tax, trading licenses, registration of birth, and what have you. So yeah. When I reached there, I applied my good mobilization skills because I was being helped by my father. I applied my good mobilization skills. I mobilized the community and they paid their taxes. In fact, I was one of the best parish chiefs in the whole district that year. So that one gave me morale and I was forced to even perform more better. But later on, it turned out to be too bad for me because I had performed excellently. Then there happened to be another parish in another sub-county where collection of taxes was so low. So I was posted there and the place was hilly. The place was very big and people were used to not paying taxes. Yes. So I faced a challenge of putting that parish to order, but finally I was through and I managed to put it to standard also. And I was able to serve there for 10 years.
How did you move around Rujeyo Parish? These are big areas. And I know that time, 2001, there was no single border operating in that area.
You are right.
No network, cell phones were not there for our young people who are listening. No border, no cell phone, no Facebook, no WhatsApp, no text messages. And you still walked house to house to collect these taxes. That must have been hard.
Yes, it was hard, but I had saved money and bought a bicycle. So I had a bicycle and I would ride from a house to a house because there were some good feeder roads, in fact, which I had helped to be created.
Wow.
So I would move with my bike, park it somewhere, then move on foot, then later on get it, and also ride to another place. So that bike is my work. But still, there were very few parish chiefs who owned the bicycles. It was not easy. Borders were not there. Even the bicycles were few. But because I had one, it helped me to perform very well.
All right. So you are a married man. You have a child, you are a grandfather, actually, a biological grandfather. Your daughter has 1 or 2 children now, which we are going to talk about. But while we are still talking about being a parish chief, how did that job prepare you to then become a grandmother's coordinator within the Nyaka organization, which you served for many, many years and established such a big program that continues to be the flagship, the biggest, coolest program that Nyaka runs? How did the skills from being a parish chief transfer into your role, which you started and handed over recently when you retired?
Thank you so much. In fact, being a parish chief helped me very much to prepare for coordinating Nyaka activities. Because as I have already said, I was used to moving from a village to a village, because by then my parish had 15 villages.
Yes.
So I was moving from a village to a village. So during those home visits I was making, I would meet there a lot of people whom I would interact with. Some of them included elderly women. Then others were orphans. In fact, during my interaction with them, I found out some of the children were double orphans. Their parents had died of age. The grandmothers, some of them were helpless. They were not able to take their grandchildren to school. And others were also, they had lost hope in those children because their parents, some of their parents had died of age. These old women thought these children were HIV positive. And the services were not available to test these grandchildren to know whether they are HIV positive or negative. And I had no capacity to take them for such services. So when Nyaka came in, and I was told of the mission and the vision for Nyaka, I knew it was the right organization that could help some of these families. So immediately when Nyaka opened, because I still remember by the time Nyaka opened on 3rd January 2003, I was present, and the previous 2 days I had been carrying the bricks at the Nyaka site.
That's true.
So immediately I became one of the volunteers, one of the mobilizers to mobilize these children to go and get that golden chance of studying from Nyaka. So I remained as a volunteer. I was in touch with the management of Nyaka. Then later on, when the chance availed itself, I had to leave local government and join Nyaka, so that these people I had identified during my time as a parish chief, and others from other places in the neighborhood of Nyaka who needed services badly, I knew they were there. So immediately I joined Nyaka and did mobilization, more especially in the grandmothers project. It was not easy because of the terrain of the area, but because of the experience I had gained as a parish chief, it helped me very much. I was able to mobilize the first group of grandmothers, sensitize them, teach them, counsel them, and we were able to get funds to do HIV/AIDS testing and counseling. So we are able to get health workers from the neighborhood Kamboga Hospital who came at Nyaka and did testing. Fortunately, most of these kids whom the grandmothers thought were HIV positive were found out to be negative.
They were not, yes.
And surprisingly, these grandmothers who thought were safe, some of them were found to be HIV positive themselves. But they were cancelled, and by that time, the services of ARVs were starting to be available. So these grandmothers, having been cancelled, having been taught how to eat well by eating vegetables, by good feeding, by boiling good drinking water, and what have you. So they lived a very, 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 very healthy life until when the services were extended to all community members. So really, all the work that I was able to do in Nyaka, it is because of my first experience as a parish chief. Because after mobilizing these grandmothers, the first grandmother group, we sensitized them on how to have kitchen vegetable gardens so that they can do good feeding. In fact, by that time, even some of these grandchildren were on bad terms with their grandmothers. But through my counseling services, they were able to live together happily. And I got some success stories from the grandchildren that the grandmothers were no longer harassing them, that they were living very well. So we taught them very many things income generation, and what have you. Then fortunately, all of a sudden we received funds from Steve Lewis Foundation for the construction of pit latrines. Because some of these families were living without pit latrines. So they were at the risk of catching diseases such as the diarrhea and what have you. So immediately when we got that money from Stephen Lewis, we put up pit latrines for these grandmothers. So immediately their lives changed. Then later on, we got money for the kitchens. We put up kitchens. Then within a year, there was a very big change in the Nyaka grandmothers. So that's when we contacted management, you especially Jackson, and we told them that we had acquired a lot, we had achieved a lot, that we needed at least to move in the whole of Kanungu district and also mobilize other grandmothers for developmental projects. Fortunately, it was accepted.
Yes.
Then in 2007, around September, I moved around with a team of grandmothers that involved Esther Tuyamreva, Janet Kabuli, may their souls rest in eternal peace. Then Frida Liabrachiliakano, then Leonarda Ndazorelera. We moved in all the 54 parishes of Kanungu district, identifying grandmothers who were living with orphans, who were ready to be trained, sensitized for developmental projects. So the whole Kanungu district was covered with 54 groups. Then another group of Nyaka school, the original one. So they were 54. So I moved around. This time I was able to, Nyaka gave me a motorcycle. So this time I was moving from a sub-county, sensitizing grandmothers, counseling them, facing there a lot of challenges. Because like we had faced in Nyaka, other places also had challenges of the same nature, where the grandmothers and the grandchildren were not living in peace. In fact, some homes had disintegrated. Some grandchildren had run away from the family at a very young age, 15 years, 14 years. So I was able to do follow-up and do counseling to these young girls, do counseling to these grandmothers. Then eventually they started living together happily, and they gave us good testimonies. Then it was around this time that we identified those challenges were also in Kutamba. By that time, Kutamba was already in existence.
Yes.
Grandmothers of Kutamba were also facing the same problem. So I had to move to Kutamba and create there 46 groups also. Sensitize them, train them, and do everything. Then the problem they had, most of these grandmothers had capacity to start some small income generating activities, but they didn't have funds. So all of a sudden, we were able to receive funds in the form of a revolving fund that we gave to these grandmothers, start income generating activities. Some grandmothers started piggery, others poultry, others gardens. Like in the Kutamba side, they were planting vegetables and harvesting and selling in a short time. So within 2 years, 2007, 2008, there was a lot of achievement, and everybody had realized that Nyaka is doing a commendable job. So that's how the Grandmothers Project started booming from there up to now.
Very good. I wanted to give you a breathing space because that's a lot of years you have covered in a very short time right now, but also a lot of accomplishments. You went from one staff member mobilizing a group near Nyaka to now to expanding to 54 parishes in Kanungu district.
Yes.
People who are listening to us, many of them actually, their grandmothers are within this group. And I encourage you, your grandmother is in this group, share a picture, share a comment under the comments. And please gambira mukaka wawe alebeji episode because we are celebrating you, we love you. And surprisingly, one time I was speaking in Washington, D.C. about grandmother's program. At the time, Honorable Mama Mbaba's former Prime Minister of Uganda came to me and said, actually, I like that program so much. My aunt is even part of the grandmothers there. Emma Mugisha, who was working recently at Stanbic Bank and has gotten now to go to Access Bank, mother was the one who was working with you in establishing those groups. So
Yes.
many women, Freda Biakanon, Freda Biabrachiria, Izin, Canon Tugume, all these women from Chihihi, all the way to Rujeo, all the way to Mpungu, Honorable Farah, who is at the district, helped us a lot to reach many people in Mpungu. Through this process, Godfrey, you
Yes.
met so many volunteers from all over the world. You worked with funders from the Seagull Family Foundation, Stephen Lewis Foundation, women empowerment out of San Diego. I would like you to share with our people, and you can even tell a joke if you need to. Interacting with international people who are coming in to visit our communities, who don't know the culture. What were some of your challenges working with these Bazungu people? And what were some of the highlights that you can share with some of our community mobilizers and members so they can prepare when they are working with people from different countries, but also they can learn from you since you've done it for so many years and did it so well. Then we will go to revolving fund as a specific subject. And the reason I wanted to do this, Godfrey told you he did counseling, he did food security with the grandmothers. He helped kids go to school, helped grandmothers test for HIV and AIDS, which are all community things we really established this program to do. We are going to get into the economic empowerment, and then we'll also get into sexual and gender-based violence, of which grandmothers and the entire community play a vital role. So challenges, highlights, working with Bazungu.
In fact, I worked with very many volunteers and visitors from overseas. But the good thing, these people are very good community workers. Whenever they would come, I would first get time with them and tell them the type of people we are going to meet, being grandmothers, then others being grandchildren. So I would tell them everything, the culture of these people we are going to meet, and what have you. So immediately, these people would catch up, then we start going to the field. Some of them were helping me in sensitize the grandmothers about income generation, about health improvement, and what have you. In fact, it was easy and very nice to work with these volunteers because by that time, I was the only field staff, and the volunteers that came in were immediately trained, and within 2 days, they were able to help me, and then we carried on a lot of things. By the way, these volunteers, whenever they would come, and when I'm telling them, they would not imagine that things were the way they were. Because, for example, there is a time that was in 2010, we received funds from Steve Lewis for construction of homes. By then, they were houses, just the houses. Then that's the time when I had just received 2 other field workers, and we are to monitor and construct 130 houses in the whole of Kanungu and Rukunjiri district.
Yes.
So with 2 members of staff, you see, it was not easy to do the monitoring the monitoring of these houses. But because we are getting volunteers, and by the way, these people are very good at field work. I would take them to one site once, and the following day they go there alone and see the monitoring and what have you, because we had designed a paper. He would go there and know that at this time they are supposed to be putting in iron sheets, putting on iron sheets. At this stage, they are supposed to be putting on mud, first application, shutters, and what have you. So these volunteers helped us a lot. And by the way, we highly appreciate their services in the development and expansion of the Grandmothers Project.
Thank you, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen who are listening to us, these episodes get to be long and we want you to get them in chunks. This is part 1 of our conversation with Godfrey Ngabirano. We appreciate you being here in second part, which is going to follow right into next week's episode. We will start with revolving fund. We will take you to the center of where Godfrey led groups to go from poverty-stricken, not earning money, to business women of our community.